What's up, buds? Today we're talking about Parasite. Parasite is directed by Bong who directed The Host, Snowpiercer, and Okja. I didn't know much about this movie going into it. I did really like The Host. I was alright with Snowpiercer, and I kind of hated Okja. Well, except for Jake Gyllenhaal.
Alright. Oh, fucking hair, goddammit!
I've been hearing about this film since it premiered at TIFF, and I've been wanting to see it ever since. I got the chance the other night. Alright, let's talk about Parasite. So the general setup of this movie is that this poor family pulls a long con scam on this rich family. That's a pretty simple setup for a movie that turns into so much more. It's a dark comedy, it's a drama, it's a thriller, and then it ends as a horror tragedy. It would be a great companion double feature with Jordan Peele's Us, but this is the better movie. To be honest, I'm still kind of wrestling with this movie. When the credits started rolling, my first thought was, well, how am I supposed to talk about that? The film does a great job at connecting you with the poor family pretty much immediately. The first times you meet them, they're all sitting around their kitchen table together, and they're either drinking beer or scheming or eating, and it really connects you with them right away. And I don't know if this is because I grew up without money, but I was immediately rooting for them. A lot of the stuff at the beginning reminded me of the show Shameless. The show Shameless is at its best dramatically when it's exploring the themes of generational poverty by means of trauma, abuse, substance abuse, addiction, and then generational addiction, which brings us right back to generational poverty. Parasite isn't really concerned with any of those things. It kind of starts out, you don't get a lot of backstory. They're poor. We don't know why they're poor. We don't know the circumstances of poor. They're poor and they live in a semi-basement apartment. I found at the beginning I was wanting a little more character details, but this movie's intent and scope are much wider and different. The poor family is very clever and they take very naturally to their con, which again, without some backstory, I found a little bit like, oh wow, they're really good at this. Maybe they could use that to make some money in a legitimate way. And I think the movie leaves those questions unanswered intentionally. The rich family, in contrast, are simple and privileged. We don't really find out how they make their money. They just are rich. So the basic setup is that the poor family are poor and clever, and the rich family are rich, privileged, and simple. But that doesn't make them bad. They just are that. They are clearly a family that loves each other, and they're only looking out for their best interest, which is the same as the poor family. So the movie starts with kind of laying out these two families on opposite sides of the spectrum. And that's where the kind of game is set. But this is where the movie kind of uses our own prejudices against us. We think the setup of the movie is poor family scams rich family. And we think we're going to be kind of wrestling with kind of these rich versus poor ideas. And we are, but the movie, again, has a much wider scope. And the way that that plays out is that when you actually get into the details of how they're scamming this rich family, they're not really hurting the rich family. The only people they're hurting are the other employees that they're screwing over and whose jobs they're taking. The rich family is kind of oblivious the whole time, but it's the other poor people that suffer the consequences of their scamming. And this is where the movie starts to take an interesting turn. One of the things that Bong did in this movie that I appreciated is the way they handled both families. Both families loved each other and seemed like good families together. Specifically, the poor family, they clearly love each other and the cast has a natural chemistry together. But also what was present was disdain. There was disdain for themselves and for the other members of the family, which led to there's a rage at the heart of this movie. And it's misguided on purpose. But it's interesting to watch people who clearly love each other, but also hate where they are in life and want more. The thing that moves the movie forward is envy. The poor people want what the rich people have, naturally. But the rich people are using the poor people to maintain their lifestyle, and they are oblivious to really how any of the poor people live. So it's this, so who's using who? Well, clearly the movie's set up with a moral judgment that the poor family is the parasite on the rich family. But the rich family is a parasite on the culture. But more than that, neither family is entirely to blame for what's happening here. Because the kind of silent antagonist of this movie is the system. Both families exist in the system and because of the system, and are really just looking out for the interests of their own family, which is what all of us do. And the game is set so that the poor people think that they're scamming the rich people, when really they're just fighting each other for whatever's left. And then, when the whole thing blows up, there are no answers, because it's a trap. Even in talking about it, I feel like I'm simplifying it, because in the movie, it's not giving you any easy answers. It's showing you all this, and this is why I'm finding it was hard to kind of talk about, because it took me a little while to get there. And it's not that this movie's complicated, it's not. But it gives you some stuff to chew on. What really brought all this home for me is how this film kind of sticks the landing. The ending kind of plays your own expectations against yourself, so that when it's giving you kind of your hopes, it's disappointing you. And when it gives you the satisfying answer, it's pessimistic and disappointing, but satisfying. The movie is playing my hopes and expectations against me. It does a great job at kind of capturing the system, living within the system, and then poking at the system, all while having fully developed characters. It's shot really great. I really love the contrast between the rich family and the poor family and their homes. The film is very interested in the details of how these people live, and that's why it works so well, because all these things are big thoughts. Everything I've talked about so far is like a big thought, but what makes it work is the small details. Most of the movie is spent in the one home or the other home, and they both feel lived in, and they both feel like homes. So all this is happening kind of on this level. On the other level, the movie has a very funny, dry, dark script, and the characters are great, and then all their motivations, while serving the bigger themes, also feel organic and they make sense. So this movie works like from top to bottom, and it keeps you engaged. It starts you at this level of, okay, I'm watching a movie about this family playing a scam on this other family, and takes you to these other levels all kind of seamlessly. When the movie gets to the end and it has a bloody end, it doesn't feel like, okay, now we're going to lay out our points about how the system that we're all involved in is rigged. And you don't feel that way, because it's meeting your expectations of this family put themselves in a bad situation, and this is the fallout of that, while serving the higher themes of all the other stuff that we talked about. And that's great. So Parasite's a great movie. It's one of 2019's best. I recommend, if you aren't a person who watches a lot of films with subtitles, maybe this could be your first one. I'm not going to do a counter opinion for this movie, because it's like sitting at 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I like doing a counter opinion because movies are subjective, and even great movies. This movie might not have worked for you, and that's okay. What I'm trying to do with this channel is create a place for people to have discussions about movies that are more than just, hey, is it good or is it bad? Parasite, for me, was a great movie. It's one of 2019's best. It's dark, it's funny, it's complicated, it's horrific, and it's tragic. But it pulls off all those things nearly perfectly. It works from top to bottom, and I had a great time. So, if you've seen it, I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. Please give us a like or a subscribe. Make sure you follow our podcast or follow us on Instagram. Give us a like any way you want to find us. Reach out to me. I'd love to hear what you thought. Anyway, Parasite's a great movie. That's it. See ya.